Thank you. Okay, so let me get to the right spot. So last academic year, I had the opportunity to reframe my position, and the project that I'll talk about grew out of that. My new position description expands space for instructional development and collaboration. And in order to strategically step into that space, I felt that I needed data. So I began the project that I'll talk about at the beginning of October last year, 2023, and I've been building it and populating it and using it since then. It's still in development, and it only contains my own data right now from about 2014 to the present. The overall goal was to streamline my instructional development and delivery in my own practice. And as part of that, I wanted a place to cohesively plan with all of the elements of instruction in one spot. I wanted a way to track reflections over time. Before this, these had been spread out over several places. So previous session statistics were in one library-wide spring share set. Materials lists were spread out over so many different places. Activities, assignments, class planning documents, lesson plans were spread out over 10 years of practice and file management. So I wanted a place to consolidate all of those. I wanted to show the variety of skills and concepts that we're able to teach with our materials and the variety of educational products that we're able to create. So if you teach with the guidelines for primary source literacy, you know that within each of those learning objectives presented, there are sometimes several, usually more than one skill or concept indicated in the guidelines. So I wanted to show that, I wanted to break those out and show that spectrum of skills and concepts to partners. I also wanted to be able to show new faculty a menu of activity and assignment possibilities so that they could explore what could be done with their class. In this new role, I had a few new classes that I aspired to get in for a visit, and I needed something that I could share with teaching faculty, some of whom had probably never considered teaching with primary sources before, so that I could show the possibilities. And then I also wanted to explore data for past and current program trends to be able to strategically step into the future and approach the future. So that means I wanted to see basic statistics at a glance, but also things like how my class visits were spread across partners and colleges over time, what concentrations of skills and concepts I'm teaching across the university, and the various forms and uses of the learning objects that I make over time. So what I was looking for was maximum extensibility, scalability, and interchangeability for potential activities, and really all of my instructional work. So I love databases. I love making relational databases. I love seeing how they can improve my life. I am addicted to Airtable. If you are too, reach out and we can jump up and down together. Airtable is where I turned when I started to think about a tool to save time prepping for instruction. And as a side note, my institution does not use Aon. I think some of this functionality can be found in Aon, but I think not all of it though. And I think there could be particular power in the combination of elements here. So I began by thinking of all of the elements involved in instruction, and these became data tables in the database. Classes, these are all of the classes that book sessions with me since about 2014. Partners, these are all of the partners that I work with across the university, their department, schools, colleges, and the partners outside the university. Terms, we are on the quarter system, so there is an entry for every term here. Reflections and feedback, this is for reflective practice and planning for each class at the session level, and where student and faculty feedback is compiled. Skills and concepts, as I said, I went through the guidelines and broke out the specific skills and concepts that I identified. Right now, though, there are 71 separate skills and concepts in this table. Some of them do not appear in the guidelines and arose otherwise. And I just want to pause for a moment here. I don't know if she's here, but I want to pause for a moment and give a boost to my dear friend Robin Katz's forthcoming book from SAA Press, so Society of American Archivists Press. It's called 608 Measurable Learning Outcomes for Primary Source Literacy, an Adaptable Handbook to Assess Student Learning at Every Level. I've been lucky enough to catch a glimpse of this text, a glimpse or two of it, and it's going to rock our worlds, quite frankly, so get ready. It's going to be such a fantastic way to think about all of the skills and concepts that we teach in our environments. So keep an eye out for that, I think, coming 2025. Activities, these are the details about all of the distinct in-class activities and out-of-class activities and lesson plans that I do or can do. Assignments, these are details about out-of-class uses of materials or visits. Learning objects, these are things like LibGuides, Canvas modules, worksheets, presentations. Materials, these link out to lists of materials wherever they're parked in various spots, but primarily they're linked to another Airtable database in my instance. For units, I'll talk more about those, but those are just ways of grouping skills and concepts. Guidelines, right now this is just the PSL guidelines, but it could easily include anything else, the visual literacy guidelines, the ACRL framework, whatever. And then sources, this is a Zotero export of the TPS bibliography, and I'll talk about how I'm using that. So all of those tables relate and link to each other in various ways so that their information is carried through the different lenses of looking at it. So like I said, I've been using this tool for about a year, and I'm finding that it saves me time in several different ways. And we can look at the back end. We'll look at the interface because I think it can yield some neat insights. Here's the ways that I'm saving time with this tool. Class planning and tracking has become a lot easier. Activity development and matching, communication of possibilities, and clustering of content. So let me just show the classes browser to tell you about how this works. So this is where a class is populated with details, concentrating all of that information about the class in one spot, including all of my planning, the skills and concepts that are addressed by the class, materials, assignments, and learning objects associated with the class. Having all of these details in one place has cut down my prep time considerably, because I'm just not having to gather them from a bunch of different places. Populating this with historical data has been an investment of time, but I find that it accelerates once the initial utility is seen. So that is where I keep information about the classes. I want to show you the skills and concepts browser. So this allows me to more easily match the skill or concept of interest to potential activities through a browsable list of activities that teach that skill, and then tailor or scale the activity to the specific class need. So if I'm working with a faculty member and I hear them saying that one of the skills they'd like to teach their students is to recognize gaps and silences in the archival record, I can choose this and start by browsing this list, which is not loading, of activities sorted by level of advancement here. This gives me a starting place, and I'll talk more about that. In terms of browsing, it also helps to tally information and track information so that I don't have to do it for things like quarterly or annual reports. I have an overview and a quarterly summary that allows me to bring out that information very quickly. So activity development and matching, I want to show you the activity development. These activities, right now, I think I have 161 of them. They vary by scale. Some are really quick and simple, and some are full class plans. And I'm generating those in a couple of different ways. So I'm entering the historical data that I have. Everything I've ever developed will eventually be here. But I'm also generating activities from my everyday work in my department. So for example, this is an activity called I've called it Opposing Sides. And it was inspired by an outreach event we had where we had materials from different sides of an issue, a controversial issue. And the discussion around those materials prompted an activity based on the skill of identifying bias at the same time we build historical empathy. For another example, I'm working on this one, or hoping to work on, from source to use, which is based on our notification of use data. We have our public services unit supervisor has compiled all of our historical data about from our notification of use form. To me, this is ground for the development of an exercise about how people use our materials, from exhibits to publications, and how they find them in the first place. Another example that I'm working on, just inspired by something this week, prompted by a researcher who is at the very beginning of understanding archival research. This is an exercise on time economy. It's not written yet. I'm going to be working on it, but this is to show how this is arising from my everyday practice. This is to develop the skill of reading a finding aid and being able to judge for relevance to one's own interests and one's own research. So, and then extending that judgment to the time needed for consultation. I think we misunderstand how difficult that can be for some people. So this exercise will seek to build that ability and the confidence in using time efficiently in archives. So finally, to populate this activities list, I'm going through the literature using the TPS bibliography, and I'm gleaning exercises and putting them here. So these are linked to the source of the exercise. And so eventually this will be a library of sources cross-referenced with the skills and concepts addressed and what guidelines are addressed by the activity. I'm not currently including sources from the bibliography in what I share with faculty, but I'd like to, because I think it's a way of making our published practice more compiled and accessible and understandable to others. This activity browser also gives me that menu of possibilities. So if there are one or two particular skills that a faculty member is interested in building, I can just build them a custom view of those skills, and they can peruse them on their own time as they are written, thinking about how they might adapt them. That's something I think that we can't always best do. I think some of the time that it should happen in the faculty member's mind. So having a way to look through possibilities and think about their own adaptation has really saved on time. And then finally, I can more easily see how activities and other elements can be clustered together in units. And so these are clusters of skills and concepts. Seeing all of the activities together within that cluster allows me to begin streamlining that content for different audiences and environments. So units are based on the broad themes in the guidelines for primary source literacy. So that's conceptualize, find and access, read, understand, summarize. All of those themes have been sort of broken into units here. And units cluster activities, assignments, objects to be a starting point for adapting it to different potential products and platforms. So this helps me start seeing the ways that I can structure and scaffold all kinds of instructional products, whether those are in-person workshops or LibGuides or Canvas modules or other open educational resources. So for example, one goal in our university strategic plan is to grow our eCampus by a significant percentage in the next 10 years. So I'm thinking about how to adapt my content to that and how we meet that need. I've already started partnering with our engineering librarian to do photogrammetry on certain artifacts, for example. And of course, we have decades of digital collections to build on. But if I wanted to build a unit around bias, authority, and power for an eCampus online single learner undergraduate audience, this gives me a starting point to build a suite or a curriculum or module of highly tailored, adapted learning opportunities and objects. So I'll stop there, but I will say that I think this potentially has some applicability to the wider profession, and I'd love to think about how such a resource could represent and serve and be managed by the TPS community. So get in touch if you'd like to talk more about that. I am using this database currently to plan my fall classes, and it is saving time, and I'm having more fun than I normally am because I can put some of this on automatic, on repeat, and not have to think about some of these details. I'm planning on developing units using existing material and developing new material over the fall and into the next year. And I'll hope to write about this project and publish it with a reusable template of the tool. So if this resonates with you, if you're doing something similar, I'd love to hear from you and compare notes. Please get in touch. So thanks, and let's hear from Liz. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to you, Liz.
Thank you. That was great. I really appreciated seeing that database in real time, and I hope you're able to share it in the future because I think that could help a lot of us. Let me get to where I can share my screen here. Yeah, okay. Share. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and start my presentation. You should be seeing the slides now. If you can't see them, let me know. So my name is Liz again, and I am here to present on a Canvas module that I developed last spring for use as sort of an introduction to visiting archives and special collections for classes. So during this presentation, I just want to go over what to expect. First, we're going to talk about that edition of this pre-work exercise in the form of a Canvas module. We're going to go over the design and implementation process that went into creating the module, and then I will demo it and then go over the benefits and challenges that I saw just from this first semester of use. So first, I want to talk about the timing and why I decided to move to a Canvas module. So I was the new archivist on campus in October of 2023, and at that same time, the campus was moving to the Canvas learning management system, and it was officially rolled out for all faculty to use in the spring of 2024. So it made sense to jump on that rollout and implement the Canvas module to introduce students to the archives prior to them stepping foot. So this created an opportunity for me to collaborate with the teaching faculty and to embed archival instruction directly on their Canvas pages from the beginning of the rollout. My goals for doing so were to introduce archives and special collections and prepare students ahead of time prior to their class visit. And by doing so, I was hoping to save time, and that did prove to be the case, to save time in the often one-shot archival instruction sessions that we have that are limited to maybe 50 minutes, sometimes 75 if we're lucky. So being able to present some of these introductory concepts in the Canvas module allowed me to bolster active learning by moving directly into the interaction and experiential learning activities that we can do in the archives, and allowing students more time to directly use archival resources and less time talking about the not so fun rules of visiting the archives. And as such, I was hoping to foster a more welcoming environment by making students more comfortable with research in the archives and letting them know what to expect. So for the design process, I met with our campus's instructional designer, and we talked about my goals for the Canvas module, and she was able to give me some tips on the various options that are available in Canvas, such as the pages, assignments, quizzes, and also advise me on how to best deal with the fact that as I'm not the teaching faculty member, just as a library faculty member, my ability to ensure that this module was completed would be somewhat limited, and how I can get around that and hopefully bolster the interaction with the module itself. And so from meeting with her, I was then thinking about how I was going to chunk that archival introduction into different sections that would be accessible and interesting to the students. So I ended up with 4 different informational sections in my module with an optional ending survey that I created using Google Forms and was linked directly in the Canvas module. That allowed those results to go to me directly, since I'm not the instructor of record on the Canvas module or the Canvas course site. I also took this as an opportunity to introduce multiple modes of instruction. So the fact that I was able to use Canvas and use this digital tool allowed me to then also add visual interest to the tool and move away from just talking at students about the general guidelines for archival research, and instead make it more interactive and hopefully a little bit more interesting. And I also was able to add a video tutorial within the module that covered basic searching of the archives within our instance of Primo VE, which we call Mega Search. So to implement this, it involved me meeting with each faculty member ahead of time, which is something I was already doing. So it just became part of the natural conversation that happened as we planned the classes and their visits. And then once the faculty member was okay with, which everyone that I talked to and approached with this was happy to share the module, I was able to then share that module directly in Canvas from my account to the instructor's account, who was then able to add that into their Canvas course. Like I said, I rolled this out in the spring of 2024, and I had 14 total class visits to the archives. 10 of those represented unique classes, and 8 of those classes received access to the module. I did not share the module with the 2 classes that were just visiting our pottery exhibit on the first floor, because that required some more in-person instruction on collection care as they were handling pottery. It was a little different than when we think about paper documents and photographs and those types of items. I also designed that exit ticket using Google Forms, and I created that to provide feedback for me so I could make future improvements to the module, and also to better understand the students' main takeaways after completing that module. So now I want to move to the basic demo of this module. What you're seeing here is that what to expect slide, and it should have moved. Can somebody confirm that you can see now the Canvas site? Yes. Rather than, okay, yes. Thank you. So this is just our what to expect section that leads students through the 4 different informational sections of the Canvas module, and then shows them that there's going to be a survey at the end. So as they click through, the first one is very text heavy. This is providing an overview of the 2 different parts of Tate Archives and Special Collections and what we collect, the different types of formats we collect, and our basic mission statement and things of that nature. The next section provides, and I created this infographic using Canva, so yay Canva, but it was meant to just give some basic idea of how to interact with these archival resources. So some standard no food or drinks, handle with care, pencils only. I also wanted to make sure students were aware that it can be cold up here, so layers are great, and just some other basic information about your devices and photos that I could get into further if a student had questions. Then I had this embedded within this document embedded within the module, which was about how to create an appointment to visit on their own. This gives our hours and how to contact us, and that was also a link to our website so they could learn more about the archives and what we collect and see our finding aids and things of that nature. And then the last part of the informational section was this video that I was able to create. It was about 2.5 minutes long, and it just leads students through searching our catalog to find archival resources, and that has proved beneficial because it's not something that I'm able to go over in class visits. So it's been helpful and students have remarked in the feedback that I've received in person or via that survey that this has helped them, and they didn't realize that they could actually find our material through the catalog. And then finally, we get to the Google form with that survey exit ticket. And I asked some basic questions like name, email, the course that they're completing the module for, and then the three questions that I hope will help guide this in the future are the what did you learn, what's something that surprised you, and if they had any questions. So with that, I'm gonna go back to the presentation and move on to the next slide where I can talk about the benefits of this module. So what I saw overall with the module is that there's an increasing awareness of archives and special collections, and that we are here for students and they're welcome to come up here. As part of that, I've not only had more students interested in meeting with me or in scheduling appointments to do research in the archives, but I've also had some students reach out about adding material from the student organizations they're a part of. So I've gotten some donations as a part of this, which is wonderful, and it's part of our goal recently here to really beef up those collections of the registered student, the RSOs, student orgs. So that has been a great benefit as well. I've been able to offer additional modes for student learning, which is important because it's allowing me to create this in a way that's increasing accessibility and inclusivity, and providing me an opportunity to include audio and visual resources that I'm limited to do so within the archives reading room. And most importantly for this session, it's freeing up time. So this is freeing up time within the session itself as opposed to prep time like Anne was speaking about. This is about freeing up time within our limited, sometimes only 50-minute sessions. So it allows students more time to work with the collections and accomplish their learning objectives that the teaching faculty and I have set up. So from the feedback via the survey, we did have limited responses, which I'll talk about in a minute here, but several students did remark that they were surprised that they could search the archival holdings through Mega Search or Primo VE. And like I said earlier, that was great because that's not something we were able to cover in a typical one-shot instruction session. Students had expressed some interest in learning more about collection care and not realizing that there were certain rules such as pencils only. And also students were surprised about the amounts and kinds of records that we held, and that they are free and open for students to use for research. So that was beneficial as well. There are challenges. The module is not required. So that really limits our ability to ensure that every student is seeing the module. And I'd say that our completion rates are somewhat questionable. I had 118 students that were presented with the module in the spring. I only received 22 survey responses, which equates to about a 19% completion rate. That may not reflect the actual interaction with the module because students may have viewed portions of the module and not got to the survey, or they skipped the survey altogether. And I'm unable to view the analytics on the shared module because I'm not the main instructor in that course. So I did notice that there were lots of coffee cups still coming through, which was a problem with in-person introductions to the archives previously. So it just caused me to pivot a little bit to make sure that there was a quick overview for care of materials. And this picture here that was generated by AI is just kind of poking fun at the fact that I did see an increase or still a continued amount of coffee cups and Stanleys show up through the archives door. So that told me that not everybody had completed the module. So as a result, looking ahead for the fall semester, I am working with faculty to discuss the possibility of requiring the module perhaps as a participation grade or something of that nature, and talking about ways that we can make sure that it is completed ahead of time so I can ensure that all students are receiving the same instruction, at least to the best of my ability. So with that, I am done, and here's my contact information if you need to reach out, and we can move on to questions.